Hello. Chapter 11, The Sleeping Beauty. 5 minutes later, I was lying on my bunk in my pajamas. My father came in and lit the oil lamp hanging from the ceiling. It was getting dark earlier now. "All right," he said. "What sort of story shall we have tonight?" "Dad," I said, wait a minute. "What is it?" "Can I ask you something? I've just had a bit of an idea." "Go on," he said. "You know that bottle of sleeping pills Doc Spencer gave you when you came back from hospital?" "Yeah, I never use them. I don't like the things." "Yes, but is there any reason why those wouldn't work on a pheasant?" My father shook his head sadly from side to side. "Wait," I said. "It's no use, Danny. No pheasant in the world is going to swallow those lousy red capsules. Surely you know that." "Yeah, but you're forgetting the raisins, Dad." "The raisins? What's that got to do with it?" No, listen," I said. "Listen, we take a raisin and we soak it until it swells. And then we make a tiny slit in one side of it with a razor blade. And then we hollow it out a little bit. And then we open up one of your red capsules and we pour all the powder into the raisin. And then we get a needle and thread and very carefully we sew up the slit." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my father's mouth slowly beginning to open. "Now," I said, "we have a nice, clean-looking raisin, chock full of sleeping pill powder, and that ought to be enough to put any pheasant to sleep. Don't you think so?" My father was staring at me with a look of such wonder in his eyes, he might have been seeing a vision. "Oh, my darling boy," he said softly. "Oh, my sainted aunt, I do believe you got it. Yes, I do. I do. I do." He was suddenly so choked up with excitement that for a few seconds he couldn't say any more. He came and sat on the edge of my bunk, and there he stayed, nodding his head very slowly up and down. "You really think it would work?" I asked him. "Yes," he said quietly. "It'll work all right. With this method, we could prepare 200 raisins, and all we'd have to do is scatter them round the feeding grounds at sunset and then walk away. Half an hour later, after it was dark and the keepers had all gone home, we'd go back into the wood and the pheasants would be up in the trees by then, roosting, and the pills would be beginning to work and the pheasants would be starting to feel groggy. They'd be wobbling and trying to keep their balance, and soon every pheasant that had eaten one single raisin would topple over unconscious and fall to the ground. Why, they'd be dropping out of the trees like apples. And all we'd have to do is walk around picking them up. Can I do it with you, Dad?" "And they'd never catch us either," my father said, not hearing me. "We'd simply stroll through the woods, dropping a few raisins here and there as we went. And even if they were watching us, they wouldn't notice anything." "Dad," I said, raising my voice, "you will let me come with you?" "Danny, my love," he said, laying a hand on my knee and gazing at me with eyes large and bright as 2 stars. "If this thing works, it will revolutionize poaching. Yes, Dad, but can I come with you?" "Come with me?" he said, floating out of his dream at last. "But my dear boy, of course you can come with me. It's your idea. You must be there to see it happening. Now then," he cried, bouncing up off the bed, "where are those pills?" The small bottle of red capsules was standing beside the sink. It had been there ever since my father returned from hospital. He fetched it and unscrewed the top and poured the capsules onto my blanket. "Right, let's count them," he said. We counted them together. There were exactly 50. "Yeah, that's not enough," he said. "We need 200 at least." Then he cried out, Wait, hold it. There's no problem." He began carefully putting the capsules back into the bottle, and as he did so, he said, "All we've got to do, Danny, is divide the powder from one capsule among 4 raisins. In other words, quarter the dose. That way we would have enough to fill 200 raisins." Yeah, but would a quarter of one of those pills be strong enough to put a pheasant to sleep? I asked. Of course it would. Work it out for yourself. How much smaller is a pheasant than a man? Many, many times smaller. Well, there you are then. If one pill is enough to put a fully grown man to sleep, you'll only need a tiny bit of that for a pheasant. What we're giving him will knock the old pheasant for a loop. He won't know what's hit him. But Dad, 200 raisins aren't going to get you 200 pheasants. Why not? Well, because the greediest birds are surely going to gobble up about 10 raisins each. You've got a point there, my father said. Yeah, you certainly have. But somehow I don't think it will happen that way. Not if I'm very careful and spread them out over a wide area. Don't worry about it, Danny. I'm sure I can work it out. And you promise I can come with you? Absolutely, he said. And we shall call this method the Sleeping Beauty. It will be a landmark in the history of poaching. I sat very still in my bunk, watching my father as he put each capsule back into the bottle. I could hardly believe what was happening, that we were really going to do it, that he and I alone were going to try to swipe practically the entire flock of Victor Hazel's prize pheasants. Just thinking about it sent little shivers of electricity running all over my skin. It's exciting, isn't it? My father said. I don't dare think about it, Dad. It makes me shiver all over. Me too, he said. But we must keep very calm from now on. We must make our plans very, very carefully. Today is Wednesday. The shooting party is next Saturday. Cripes, I said. That's in 3 days' time. When do you and I go up to the wood and do the job? The night before, my father said, on the Friday. In that way, they won't discover that all the pheasants have disappeared until it's too late and the party has begun. Friday's the day after tomorrow. My goodness, Dad. We'll have to hurry if we're going to get 200 raisins ready before then. My father stood up and began pacing the floor of the caravan. Right, here's the plan of action, he said. Listen carefully. Tomorrow's Thursday. When I walk you to school, I shall go into Cooper's stores in the village and buy 2 packets of seedless raisins. And in the evening, we'll put the raisins into soak for the night. Yeah, but that only gives us Friday to get ready 200 raisins. Each one will have to be cut open and filled with powder and sewed up again, and I'll be at school all day. No, you won't, my father said. You'll be suffering from a very nasty cold on Friday, and I shall be forced to keep you home from school. Hooray, I said. We won't open the filling station at all on Friday. Instead, we will shut ourselves in here and prepare the raisins. We'll easily get them done between us in one day. And that evening, off we'll go up the road towards the wood to do the job. Is that all clear? He was like a general announcing the plan of battle to his staff. All clear, I said. And Danny, not a whisper of this to any of your friends at school? Dad, you know I wouldn't. He kissed me goodnight and turned the oil lamp down low, but it was a long time before I went to sleep. Okay, chapter 12, Thursday and school. The next day was Thursday, and before we set out for school that morning, I went around behind the caravan and picked 2 apples from our tree, one for my father and one for me. It is a most marvellous thing to be able to go out and help yourself to your own apples whenever you feel like it. You can do this only in the autumn, of course, when the fruit is ripe, but all the same, how many families are so lucky? Not 1 in 1,000, I would guess. Our apples are called Cox's Orange Pippins, and I liked the sound of the name almost as much as I liked the apples. At 8 o'clock, we started walking down the road towards my school in the pale autumn sunshine, munching our apples as we strode along. Clink went my father's iron foot each time he put it down on the hard road. Clink, clink, clink. Have you brought money to buy the raisins? I asked. He put a hand in his trouser pocket and made the coins jingle. Will Cooper's be open so early? Oh yeah, they open at 8:30. I really loved those morning walks to school with my father. We talked practically the whole time. Mostly it was he who talked and I who listened, and just about everything he said was fascinating. He was a true countryman. The fields and the streams, the woods and all the creatures who lived in these places were a part of his life. Although he was a mechanic by trade, and a very fine one, I believe he could have become a great naturalist if only he had had a good schooling. Long ago, he had taught me the names of all the trees and the wild flowers and the different grasses that grow in the fields. All the birds too, I could name, not only by sighting them, but by listening to their calls and their songs. In springtime, we would hunt for birds' nests along the way. And when we found one, he'd lift me up onto his shoulders so I could peer into it and see the eggs. But I was never allowed to touch them. My father told me a nest with eggs in it was one of the most beautiful things in the world. I would agree. I mean, it really is, isn't it? When you see a bird's nest with eggs in it is like, oh, it's such a wonderful thing. I thought so too. The nest of a song thrush, for instance, lined inside with dry mud as smooth as polished wood, and with 5 eggs of the purest blue speckled with black dots. And the skylark, whose nest we once found right in the middle of a field, in a grassy clump on the ground. It was hardly a nest at all. It was just a little hollow place in the grass. And in it were 6 small eggs, deep brown and white. Why does the skylark make its nest on the ground where the cows can trample it? I asked. Nobody knows why, my father said, but they always do it. Nightingales nest on the ground too, and so do pheasants and partridges and grouse. On one of our walks, a weasel flashed out of the hedge in front of us, and in the next few minutes I learned a lot of things about that marvellous little creature. The bit I liked best was when my father said, "The weasel is the bravest of all animals. The mother will fight to the death to defend her own children. She will never run away, not even from a fox, which is 100 times bigger than her. She will stay beside her nest and fight the fox until she's killed." Another time, when I said, "Just listen to that grasshopper, Dad," he said, No, that's not a grasshopper, my love. It's a cricket. And did you know that crickets have their ears in their legs? It's not true. Yeah, it's absolutely true. And grasshoppers have theirs in the sides of their tummies. They're lucky to be able to hear at all because nearly all the vast hordes of insects on this earth are deaf, as well as dumb, and live in a silent world. Okay, I'm going to stop there. End of part 1.